So it's E20 Junior, Seniors and Masters. Heat number 2, let's take you through the starting order. On pole position, it's race 1 winner, Days Dams, who will have Tomasz Ibsen from Poland alongside. Mats-Johan Overhoff and Hector Ramirez, the Heat 1 Senior Masters winner, will be on row number 2. Emma Svensson will be joined by Germany's Andreas Mattis on row number 3. Then it's Heiner Born and Gaz Baldemans on row number 4, rounding out, pretty much rounding out the Senior Masters grid. Frédéric Lemieux and Antoine Lemieux will be on row number 5, thereby completing the overall top 10, and will be first and second on the grid for E20 Juniors. Christopher Holst, who won the first heat earlier on today, will be joined by France's Arthur Lorimier on the back row of the grid. Once again, like we had earlier on this morning, it will be a standing start for both classes. The marshal with the red flag is at the front of the starting grid, and then the juniors will line up behind the yellow line on the starting grid itself. So as we had, very much similar to shifter kart starting, because of the immense torque from the permanent magnetic synchronous motors on the E20s. They do also have different stages of power with regards to the tuning on the systems themselves. The flag marshal walks towards the back of the E20 Senior and Masters grid. The red lights on the starting gantry, and we are underway with a good start by Days Dams once again. Thomas Ibsen goes in behind him. Mats-Johan Overhoff looking towards the outside as we wait very shortly for the juniors to be let loose onto the circuit. The red lights are on the starting gantry for them, and they are underway. A very good launch from Frédéric Lemieux as she gets off the line better than anybody else heading into turns 1 and 2, with Antoine slotting in behind in second position. As the rest of the field make their way through off of the Europlan into the turn 7 chicane, and Mats-Johan Overhoff has gotten back up into second position ahead of Tomasz Ibsen from Poland, very much hot on the heels of Days Dams, who is still leading the way. You can hear the tyres squealing as they make their way through turns 11 and 12 as Days Dams continues to lead the way. First lap about to be completed, so the Belgian in the 7:21 is leading. Mats-Johan Overhoff in second. Tomasz Ibsen in third place. Emma Svensson in fourth overall, and just behind her, now leading in Senior Masters, is Andreas Mattis from Germany, who is about 0.8 of a second ahead, well, 7.5 of a second ahead of Hector Ramirez, the sole Chilean representative here this weekend. Frédéric Lemieux leads the way in E20 Juniors, just by about 2.5 of a second ahead of brother Antoine. 5.5 minutes to go, and there is still plenty to play for. Days Dams managed to pull away into the distance in the opening race, but I think now that with the drivers having a bit more of an understanding of how the track has evolved since the amount of races have taken place through, there's a lot of rubber pickup on the right-hand side coming out of turn 11. That is going to increase over the course of the day, but it is line astern between the top 3. Days Dams still leads, but Mats-Johan Overhoff is 1.5 behind. He is now starting to attack the Belgian. Tomasz Ibsen is not too far behind and is waiting in the wings. And then we go to Junior E20 as Christopher Holst trying to get past Antoine Lemieux in the battle for second position. As now Andreas Mattis closing in on Emma Svensson from Sweden, as Gaz Baldemans trying to get past Heiner Born. Gaz is a journalist from the Netherlands and has really been enjoying the experience on E20 Senior Masters and has been improving every time he's been out on track. Meanwhile, a little bit of a moment for Frédéric Lemieux going through the turn 7 exit off of the Europlan, but with just over 4 minutes remaining. Mats-Johan Overhoff has lost second position to Tomasz Ibsen in the battle for the overall race lead and for dominance in seniors at the minute. Andreas Mattis now slingshots up the inside of Emma Svensson. And there was a clash of bumpers between the pair. Right front of Emma Svensson's kart, the 741, and the left rear of Andreas Mattis's kart. Hector Ramirez, despite being the eldest driver on the grid, is still showing that he's got the joys of spring underneath that right foot of his. And that means he's definitely enjoying putting the pedal to the metal, so to speak. But 6/10 separate the top 3 drivers with just over half time completed. And because Tomasz Ibsen and, Tomasz Ibsen and Mats Johannoff were battling away for second position, it allowed Dejs Dams to pull away to win by a second and a half. E20 Junior now making their way through into turn number 11. And at the moment, it is Antoine Lemieux leading the way. All 4 competitors very tightly, well, the top 3 are a little bit closer than the driver in 4th position, who is Arthur Lorimier. So Antoine Lemieux leads Frédéric Lemieux, so the siblings leading the way. Antoine has got a gap of around about close to 6/10 of a second between himself and Frédéric. But the top 3 overall making their way through into turn 10 at Cafe Corner. And I just saw a flash of Supermats t-shirts at the bottom row of the grandstand. Absolutely brilliant. But let's see if Mats-Johan Overhoff can use a bit of cunning, a bit of racecraft, and maybe even the good old boost button or the E20 to help close on in. As I said in the previous race, it is a 5-second deployment every single time you use it. So even if you don't use the full 5 seconds, the system will have to recharge over a 30-second period. And when the 5 blue lights start flashing, that means on the chronometer, on the steering wheel, that means you can deploy the extra 4 kilowatts of power. E20, the 20 stands for the standard kilowatt output of these permanent magnetic synchronous motors. A minute and a half still to go on the clock. Last time it was just over 5.5 tenths between the top 3. They're about to come through the final corner as Junior E20 make their way through into turn 9. Dejs Dams now sets the fastest lap of the race, 56.7, dead on the nose for the Belgian. And Mats-Johan Overhoff is losing a little bit of time to Tomasz Ibsen in the run for second position. Andreas Matis at the moment is still leading in the senior masters class. He's currently 4th overall, but Hector Ramirez is very, very close indeed. The gap between them last time around was 0.227 of a second. And Andreas Matis was about a 1/10 of a second slower than Hector Ramirez. So are we going to see something a bit different? Are we going to see Matis defend right up until the wire? And yes, 3 races within a race, folks. So we have 3 classes for E20. Great to see Tommy and Timothy Vladimirov enjoying the spectacle of 3 different classes going out there to battle on the same Sigma Sodicar DD2 chassis, front and rear brakes. And that is quite an experience in itself from my perspective, that the first time going out in the kart, you do get a sense of how heavy the braking actually is on these karts. It's quite astounding, to be honest with you. But the timer has expired. Dejs Dams looking to continue his winning run here in E20 Seniors. Tomasz Ibsen still holding on to second. Mats-Johan Overhoff still rounding out the top 3. Next time round, it will be the final lap. And Andreas Matis still ahead of Hector Ramirez for the Senior Masters classification. Final lap now underway. Dejs Dams puts the pedal to the metal. It's fully charged, hopefully with a little bit of an additional boost to add to that. 5.7 tenths of a second between Dejs Dams and Tomasz Ibsen, but Mats-Johan Overhoff is closing to the 756 from Poland. Mats was competing in the B&L as a DD2 driver to get used to the front and rear braking system in preparation for this race meeting. Down the Europlan for the final time go the top 3 into turn 7. It's a hefty kart, quite considerable weight considering the battery packs that are on the inner, right literally alongside the driver within the confines of the side pods. Through into turn 10, Tomasz Ibsen was I'm not too sure if he was a bit too overzealous with the steering, but Taze Dams is going to come out of the final corner and accelerate fully charged across the line. The Belgian does 2 for 2 here at Karting Genk. Thomas Ibsen and Mats-Johan Overhoff round out the top 3. But look at this. Senior Masters, what's going to happen here? Hector Ramirez is not going to get one up on Andreas Matis. No, he is not. Matis puts the boot on the other foot, so to speak, by 74 thousandths of a second. Hector Ramirez takes second position, so it's one win apiece in Senior Masters, but Taze Dams takes 2 for 2, winning by just under 0.6 of a second ahead of Tomasz Ibsen from Poland. Mats-Johan Overhoff rounds out the top 3, covered by 0.9. Andreas Matis wins the Senior Masters classification by 74 thousandths of a second ahead of Chile's very own Hector Ramirez, with Emma Svensson bringing up the rear in the senior class in the 7.41 sixth overall. Rainer Born and Kaz Baldemans complete the top 8, and they round out the Senior Masters classification with Antoine Lemieux on the road again, taking a second victory, but in the first one was denied it due to a front fairing penalty. Christopher Holst, Frédéric Lemieux and Arthur Lorimier round out the 12-strong grid after 9 laps of electrically charged racing. Well, with the sunshine still with us in great abundance here in Karting Genk, everything was soon to be electrified for the second of 3 Project E20 heats as seniors, senior masters and juniors would line up once again. At the start, it was a textbook launch off the line from Taze Dams from Belgium, with Thomas Ibsen slotting behind and Mats-Johan Overhoff bringing up the rear of the top 3. Emma Svensson would keep defending very early doors as Mats-Johan Overhoff managed to get through on Thomas Ibsen on the opening lap through turn 4. Good launch off the line by Frédéric Lemieux in the battle in E20 Junior. But it would be a case that the others would start closing on in. But then Thomas Ibsen would send the ultimate Nigel Mansell dummy up the inside of Mats-Johan Overhoff, doing again the same as he did in the previous race through turn number 12. Mats would then have to try and see if he could do his level best to catch the Polish wonder in the 7.56 entry, but Taze Dams was able to control proceedings, not able to put a foot wrong there, and he makes it 2 for 2. Andreas Matis would win in Senior Masters, and Antoine Lemieux would take another win on the road in E20 Juniors. And here is the moment coming out of the final corner. Hector Ramirez did have the run and the boost assistance on Heat 1, but Andreas Matis stood his ground, came out of the final corner and said, "You're not going to do that to me." Antoine Lemieux once again made sure that he put the best foot forward and kept ahead of the 6.01 of Arthur Lorimier.